And here's the other thing is the buzzword of affordable housing. We'll just say it. I
Yeah.
can't stand hearing that anymore because both the city and the county use it all the time. People are campaigning on this. I'm going to bring affordable housing. I don't think people understand what that means. What does that mean?
When just asking permission to build a house is costing you around $30,000, if you don't have the money and you're working with a bank and they give you a construction loan up front, you're compounding that $30,000 with interest on top of it. And then when you roll it into a mortgage, you're probably paying upwards of $50,000, $60,000 just on that asking permission part. So that's where in my mind I look at that aspect of what can the county do better there to drop that down. If we can bring those prices down, that's a big chunk of a house, you know, making it cheaper for somebody to be able to do. If you can bring that house down from 400,000, probably even more than that, down to maybe in that 350 range, just by simplifying that process of asking permission and the fees associated with that, that's a huge win. And that's something the county can definitely look into, in my opinion.
Funny. I mean, the times that we worked together too, there was times when we were say like, for lack of a better term, kind of on the same team. And then there was times when I was helping a developer through a subdivision and the ditch board basically needed some stuff the developer didn't want to do. And I will say from firsthand experience, Paul, you were like really easy to work with, given that our client wanted something different than kind of your, I guess, constituents, for lack of a better term. And you're kind of acting on behalf of the ditch. I was acting on behalf of the client. End of the day, we were able to make it work and come to a conclusion that worked for everybody. Not everyone's going to walk away super, super happy, but you can still work together in a way that's like for the common good. And so that's something I watched you do. It was like super, super impressive. I think one, I've seen firsthand that you can, you have the ability to work with people in a way that's like, look, there's no reason to fight over this, but here's what we need and here's what you need. Where's the solution? So I love that side of you, Paul. And I'm just excited to see kind of common sense come together. Now, I will also say, I know the other commissioners now, and I like them as people. I may not agree with their policy, right? But that's not what we're doing here. We're not going to bash any other commissioner, and I know that's not your style either. But I also want to say, like, there's some things that probably need to change for the better, in my opinion. What are your thoughts on this affordable housing? What do you think about a little bit of growth in a smart way?
We're kind of lacking in homes in the area. That's a big issue. We need more homes for people to live in that they can afford. And it's just, as I see it every year, that price is going up and up and up and up. And I really wanted to kind of sit down and think about how at a county level we can help that. And in my mind, I'm sitting here looking, going, well, the cost of land is the cost of land. The cost of building materials is cost of building materials. But the permitting and the asking permission to build a home.
Know that I've been through this process many times. So I'll give a really clear example, and I'm totally fine sharing this because one is public, and two, I had a call with the new county or the county manager and the new planning department manager, right? So both of them, when I jumped on a Zoom, and to their credit, they were great. They were open to listening, but I kind of bashed them. I was like, look, here's a client who had 10 acres on a paved road in a very well-known part of the county. He had water, sewer access, everything very easily taken care of. And it took him about 19 months to get a subdivision in half, right? He's cutting 10 acres into two 5-acre lots. And it took nine. And the thing is, it wasn't me. Like, this is what I was pointing out, is like, if I follow the email chain and it does all public information, you guys respond, and within 24 hours, usually I'm responding with the fix or the change you request. And then it's months. We're waiting 2 months for an email back, and you can call all you want, but there's this kind of a waste of time there. And not only that, but just the process itself. So, that's what comes to mind is people call and say, hey, Eric, can you help me with the subdivision? I said, well, yeah, but you're looking at 30 grand and probably 18 months before you hear even an answer. Like, can you subdivide? I don't know. You got to get 2/3 of your neighbors to say yes. Every entity you can possibly think of to say yes and come look at your property. And all of that stuff doesn't have to be that way. It really doesn't. So that's the improvement I hope to see as well, is like, it'd be more reasonable to say, look, yes, we don't have zoning in this county. If you come in and you say, here's my project, they'll say, well, what's the 10 ways you can't do it? Rather than, here's your hurdles, but how can we help you?
So when I think of that, in all honesty, I think that every project basically has a good chance of being approved if you mitigate the issues, your fresh water, sewer, and egress, basically. If you can mitigate that, and then of course you want to take into account your neighbors. And there's a fine line in there. How much say should they have on what you can do with your own property? I mean, if you're greatly impacting that, that's issues that need to be heard for sure. And it's interesting, as I've been talking about this on kind of my campaign, I've gotten a lot of people saying, well, you're just pro development. And I want to make sure people understand this is from, like you said, a small project of 10 acres. That guy possibly just wants to split in half. So maybe he's got to take care of his parents that could move into the 5 acres next to it, or maybe they have a child moving back to the area that's, wanting to live here. All the way up to, yes, there is large developments around that are going in.
I know you're probably not ready to use the word pro development in your campaign. I will tell you, I probably am personally. So I'm ready to use that language
Yeah.
because think about what it does, right? Growth, smart growth is good. Does that mean it means the ability to your point, let's say have 40 acres, you split 40 acres into 4 10-acre lots. That's really smart growth in our county. That cannot be done on a dirt road anymore. That is an insane thing to say out loud. But the point is, smart growth will make housing more affordable. That's just how it's going to be. If we have more houses to buy, people are going to spend less for it.
When you come down to you mentioned it about, 40 acres and do 4 10-acre lots. Well, right now in the county, they're not going to let that happen because they say the road is not the standard. Well, why did we adopt a new road standard in 2020, or it went into effect in 2022, that basically takes your roads out of standards, and now the county needs to spend about $200 million to bring these roads up. They're not, in my opinion, they're not bigger, they're not safer, they're not anything. It's just saying, well, this amount of traffic on this road, now it kicks it into a paving, which it completely jumps the capital expenses for the county way up to where they can't afford to do that.
Yeah, I think this is the thing I get frustrated with in politics in general is like this overpromise thing, right? Like you hear politicians say, "Well, I'm going to change this, I'm going to make this better," and then you start to think about it, like that's not even really possible, right? For a commissioner to do. But that's why I love this topic is because it absolutely is possible, is to speed up that process. So I'll give another example. My aunt and uncle had a piece of property on 523. They asked me to subdivide it. They wanted to give their land to their family, right? So they wanted to subdivide, sell a couple. They wanted to give their house to their family. They wanted to build a new house to retire in. They got about 3 or 4 months in the process and 15 grand in. This is a bigger subdivision. So they were going to be up against a bigger cost. And they eventually just said, screw this. I'm so tired already. And I see the road, and they just quit. And that happens quite a bit, where it would have been, again, it was 523, about a mile from Bayfield. I mean, perfect location for growth.
Yeah.
Um, and they could even get a water line over from 509. We kind of had this whole like thing figured out. We had a water line, we had everything going, and they just got tired. They got tired of the process. And I was like, look, you're about a tenth of the way through, to be honest with you, and they were like, all right, we quit.
Yeah.
And I don't blame them. I mean, so the point of all this is like, this is a real challenge, a real problem. Like I used to say the best development would be on 510 or Oxford, for example, like 514 area. There's a lot of big lots out there. There's a lot of 80-acre lots that are now have LaPlade water. We talked about water lines. They're perfect, clean, reliable water. All you got to do is pay a $9,000 tap fee, which is pretty cheap compared to a well, by the way.
Yeah.
And so I was like, this is the perfect location. And then the county changed the road standards. And all of a sudden I was like, you know what? Actually, you can't develop 510 anymore because you have to pave the road to your lot. Unless you're one of the lucky ones who are literally right there off of 160 or off of 509. Sorry, you're looking at easily $1 million in infrastructure just for you to still maybe subdivide, right? So I
Yeah.
just think it's like the reason I like this conversation so much is because it can change starting from the planning department, building department, all the way up to hopefully you as a commissioner.
The other question you see is they say that we've never raised our mills for the county since 1987. So fourth lowest in Colorado. And to me, that's something that we should be proud of because we've been able to keep those taxes down on people. So we should be able to actually have a little bit more affordable living here because our taxes are a little bit lower. And I had a great conversation with another friend of mine. He's like, I live kind of out far out in the county, and when I was growing up, there was like one house out there. And he said it's still the exact same road in that area. They haven't expanded the road, put more road in. But he said, now when I look out my door, there's 15 other houses that are around me. And he said, those are all paying into the infrastructure. So that's how that system works. Even though our mills were passed back in 87, there is new growth that's coming that helps pay into that budget and stuff. So when we talk, that's something that the county's been talking about a lot, is that we need to raise those taxes up. And I'm sitting here going, well, if we do smart growth, we're the budget gets to increase at the same time. We are developing good housing projects that's helping people move to the area. Hopefully we can do it in an affordable way.